Hello everyone, welcome back. So in our API testing series, today we are going to see how we can perform a CRUD operation. It means that the get call, post call, put call and delete, all these four API different types in the Postman, and how we can execute the sequence of API calls by using the collection. So that is what we are going to see. So if you would have observed this series, we understood what is API testing, what exactly we need to test in an API endpoint, and how do we pass the information to make a user journey actually. Now think about in any scenario where we are creating an entity, we are updating something, and also we are deleting something. Think about a Facebook post. What you normally do, you just post something. It means that you are creating a post, new post. Let's say that you want to update something, so you edit it and you change something, and after that if you didn't like something, you can delete. So these are the basic functionalities of the Facebook post functionality. Think about Amazon e-commerce websites. What you do, so you first read the details, all the products. First you are searching it, let's say that. Now you are getting all the results. After that you will be adding something into your cart. You can update something into the cart, and after that, let's say you don't like it something, then you can delete it. So these are the main functionalities, right? So we are just picking a particular functionality or setup user journey, but then the main idea of this particular session is to understand how we can build the API collection by using Postman, and we can run it in a sequence. That is the main motto behind this particular session. And then throughout this we will see what exactly we can test it, how we can pass certain information from one API endpoint to another endpoint, the variable setup, and something more. Okay, so now let's get started. So to do this, actually we are using the GoRest. So it's a kind of a freely available API vendor actually. So this provides certain API calls where anybody can use those API endpoints to perform this CRUD operation. Okay, now if you just come back here, a simple way, so whenever you go to the gorest.co.in, it will ask you to authenticate. So you can use any one of these ways. Either you can log in with your GitHub account or Google account or Microsoft account. You can log in. Once you log in, you will see there is something called as API token. Now it will give you a string, actually an arbitrary string. You have to take this to authorize these endpoints, whatever the endpoints it is available, and you can use that as a bearer space the token ID which you are getting after you log in. As simple as that. I'll show you that as well, how to use that. So to understand what exactly this API is doing, you can see there is something called as public/v2/users. It means that some users it is trying to create it. The user can have a first name, last name, gender, email address or something. Okay, you can get the details. You can create a new user. For those users, you can add some post, you can add comments, you can even add some to-do list for that particular user. Something they are giving a domain specific functionality so that you can practice it. And this is what exactly we are going to use it. Okay, so for this, the first thing is that I will be creating a new collection in my Postman. Okay, so I'm creating a new collection. This is my Postman. We have already discussed how exactly the Postman looks like. So I will be giving like this, CRUD underscore GoRest. Let's say some name I'm giving it. Okay, and in this, now this is my collection, right? Now in this collection, it can have number of API calls. So the first request that I'm going to add, get all users. Okay, fine. Now to get this, I need to have a get call that we know, and then we need to get the API endpoint. So I can simply copy this one and I can paste it here. Now to do this, as I told, if I just do a send call, you can see that it is coming, all the results it is coming. So get call is basically, it doesn't need any authorization. Okay, but the problem with this get rest, I mean it's not exactly a problem, but the trick with the go rest is that when you do this public get call, right, it doesn't really take from your account. Like if you are adding a new entity, let's say into this, you might not see that. So for that they are asking a bearer token actually for that. Okay, so now to do that, as I told, you can just go to this API token, you will get a token ID that I'm going to add it here. And as I told, the bearer token can be added as authorization into your header section actually. And here you need to give bearer, and then you need to give some string. Now the thing is that this bearer token is required for all other calls like post call, put call, or delete call. Now in that case, you cannot simply hardcode these things, right? You can use some variable concept actually, and you can see when you just select this, it asks you to set as variable. Let's do that. And now you can add it. Now it is asking for a scope. Let's say that this is token. I'm just giving some name, and it is asking for some scope. Now there are a lot of different scopes are there. Scope is nothing but like, are you creating a variable that you want to use across this particular all the collections, or is it only the variable that you are going to create specific to this particular collection, or is it specific to this particular request only? Now I'm saying that it is very specific to my collection only, this particular collection, so that all the API endpoints can share this particular token. And I'm saying set as variable, and you can see this token came. And now how can I access this token variable? You can go to this collection, click on edit, go to the variable section, and you can see that the token. Now let me add it properly, the token that I have, the actual token from my account. Okay, so I have added mine actually here, and I'm putting this initial and also to the current one only, and I'm saving this one and close it. Okay, fine. Now here the bearer token is added here, so nothing is really problem here. Okay, so whenever I'm doing a get call, right, what is exactly I'm testing here? There are a lot of different ways I can test this API endpoint, right? One thing is that I need to make sure that there is some result. It should give me 200 as status. It should give me OK as my status code. It should give me like some time. Let's say that there is a rule that you need to have this API call successful within certain amount of millisecond. The latency, you have to check it. All these things we can even test it into the test tab. See, at the end, our goal is not to just call this, right? You have to call it. Whatever the result it is coming, you test it. That is the main motto of API testing. So for this test tab gives lot of features actually. You can see we have already discussed it. Gives a predetermined certain scenarios where you can call it, like you want to get an environment variable, you can use it. You want to get a collection variable, so you can get some variable like this you can do that. And also you can write certain tests actually here, like how you are writing the test cases in your Selenium, Cypress, Playwright. The same thing you can do it here also. And I can do a pm.test. PM is nothing but the global Postman variable, and here I can specify the name of my test, and I will say that get all users. This is my name of the test, and then after that I'll put a comma, I'll write a function, and in this function I will be writing certain test cases actually here. Okay, like this. Now what are the different level of test cases I can do? And this has to be bracket, this bracket actually, and inside this function I will be writing the test case. Okay, now let's say that I want to make sure that this entity, you can see lot of users it is creating, right? And it is an array of users. So it means that I will say that the result what you're getting should be more than one. So the user content should be more than one. So there are multiple users should be giving me as my result. How do I do that? So I will say first thing is that I need to get this particular collection, this response. How will I get this response? Always use the PM dot, you will say response. Now dot JSON. Now JSON is a method actually. So this gives me the entire JSON. It also gives the description also. And this one I will be checking something based on this. And I will say that PM, So I'll say PM dot expect. Now expect is something I can assert actually here. and I will say that JSON, I can even use a variable, and I will say that users count equal to, I'll keep this as a separate here, and here I will say that user count, okay, user count 2 dot greater than 1. So I'm expecting that the result what it is coming, the each user section, now see, this is one user section, this is another user section, that should be greater than 1. It shouldn't be null actually. Okay, so this is one test. Another test I can create, let's say that here status check, something I'm giving. You can even put it inside this multiple expect statements also, you can put it, not a problem. Okay, now I will say pm dot response dot, I will say that let's say response time. So this response time I will say that should be less than 300. So I'll put this one again, pm dot expect, okay, expect and response time here dot to be. These are all inbuilt methods, you need not to worry about that. With practice you will be getting, and I'm expecting that it should finish, this particular call should be finishing below 500 milliseconds. This will definitely fail because it takes more than 500 milliseconds, but let's try that. And also I'm making sure that pm dot expect, let's put another expect statement, pm dot response code. Let's see, response code, it is coming, it is a different way here, pm response dot to dot have, you no need to have some kind of a expect statement here, it will directly give an inbuilt method, and you need to make sure that it should give me 200. The same thing, response dot to have status message okay, like that you can do. Okay, so this is what actually we can do. Now we have spoken about how to have a collection variable, how to add different tests, and have this. Okay, fine. Now my get call is done. Now the next thing is that I need to make sure that to add some user, that is the CRUD operations create option, right? Now to have, they're giving an endpoint public /v2/user, so the same endpoint I can use it. So what I'm going to do, I'll duplicate it, and you rename this, you will say that create user, okay, create user. And for creating you need to have a post call. Now for post call there has to be this bearer token. For this get call you might not need this particular bearer token, but for this it is required, and you can see this get call change it to post based on this method. Okay, now let's change something into this particular test. First thing is that for some time, let me cut this one, save it, run this, and let's see what is the error it is giving. And here you can see it need a body actually here. To have the post call you need to have some body. What is this body? You can see that documentation from any of the Swagger link if your organization have that, or you can talk to your developer. Any API endpoints that is specified in your organization, there has to be some documentation, and here you can see the examples are there. Now to create a user you need to have the authentication or the bearer token, and then you can send this particular body actually there, name, gender, email, status, this is required. Let me take this. Now what we can do, I can take this particular section actually here. Oops, sorry. So I'll just move a bit and I will take this. This is also a JSON, right? Now the body what you are creating, that has to be a JSON. So you can select raw and you can select the JSON and you put it. ID is not required. It will generate automatically. And now here I'm giving QAB box, any name you can give, and here you can give qabbox@gmail.com, and this is very unique actually. Every time you want to do a post call, make sure that the email has to be unique, and mail, and you can just put it as active. Now this is very much required here. Okay, now if you post this, right, and you can see that the ID got generated and 2 not 1 created. Now if I put, so I'll copy paste the same test tab from this get call, put it into this and update something. Okay, Now what it is, now again let's say that this is a simple post call, right? So I'm expecting it should finish within 300 millisecond. The status has to be 201, but I cannot use this one, right? Because there is no user count here, it is always one only. So what exactly I need to do with this particular test? I'll make sure that there is some kind of response it is coming. It shouldn't be null actually there. So I will say I'll create a variable here, okay, variable, and I will say that user ID equal to, I'll say pm dot response dot json, okay, and I will say that dot id. Okay, now this will give me the ID actually from here. Okay, and here I will say that pm dot expect, I'll say that this user ID which it is got created, I'll say is not null actually, I will say, because I don't know what kind of ID it is generating, but I need to make sure that there has to be one ID created actually there. And here you can change this, I will say that create user test, you can just make sure that, and this is create user status check. Fine, now this much thing is there, and now as I told, every time you run you have to make a unique email address or else it will throw error actually. So let me send this, and you can see a new ID got generated, new data got entered. How do you see this result actually, this test result? You can see there is something called as body, cookies, header, test result, and you can see that all these things got passed. You can see this got passed here. It means that there is one user ID got created and which is not null. That's why this particular test got passed. Here it got failed because it took 345 millisecond, but I'm expecting 300. That should be fine. Okay. Fine. Now this is how you can test it. Even you can test based on the name has to be something, email has to be something, gender has to be something. You can check. There are a lot of different ways you can make sure that the name, the ID value has to be an integer value. These things also you can check it. Okay. So now my post call is done. The next thing is that I need to update something to this particular user actually, let's say. Now think about this. This user is created in this particular API call. Now if I'm making a duplicate here and I'm making an update is nothing but put call, right? Now for the put call also you need the same thing only. Like if you go to this documentation, you can see that you can get these users, but you need one user ID. So it means that users / it need one user ID. From where you will be getting this user ID? Let's say that it is a path variable. Colon. Okay, it's a path variable. From where you will get it? Now when I'm running this in sequence at the runtime, I need to fetch actually whatever it got created. This ID, I need to take it to this particular put call here, and I need to update something. It means that I need to use this particular user ID across my different API calls. And for this, as I always told, that we need to create a variable. Okay, now this variable, if you see, this is very local to this particular test column only. I cannot use it here. Now a simple thing is that I can create a collection variable. So let me do that. How do you create it? You need to go to this edit. You need to go to this variable section. You add it user ID. Okay, no need to give anything, just create it. Now when you go to this test tag, into this post call, you just need to add one statement, pm dot collection variables. You can see that it is giving collection variable. It means that all the variables that is specific to this particular collection can be accessed by using this particular property. And if I say set, and here I can specify the name of that particular user ID. So this is the variable name, and I can add some value. What is that value? This is my value. Okay, so pm dot collection variable set, user ID is the variable which I created a variable. The value is coming from this variable. Now I can use this user ID in any one of these calls. Let's do that. Now let's go to this put call, and here what I can do into this param section, right, and user ID, here I can specify this user ID. That's it. Now you can see that this user ID is not coming anything because I have to run this so that this will be assigned. I'll show you that. And here let's edit this. Let's say that update user details. Now for updating this user details, right, you need to have this body. You can change all of these things or you can change any one of this value. Let me do one thing. I'll just remove this status. I'll make it as female. Okay. And I will make sure that from Gmail, I will say that yahoo.com. Something I'm going to change at the end. Okay. And name, I don't want to really change. Let it be like this. Okay. So this is my updated content which I'm expecting actually. So my body is ready. Params I'm adding here, user ID, and see, this is the way you can add the path variables, and this is coming from this documentation. You can see that. Okay, fine. Now the test cases. Let's understand the test case. What are the different tests we can add it here? Okay, now for an instance, if I'm doing this, let me do one thing. Let me again call this particular here so that the user ID will be assigned. And if I go to this particular API endpoint, the next API endpoint, and if I go to the param section, you can see the user ID got created. So when I called this particular API endpoint, this test tab is not only just testing or asserting something, but it is even used to set some collection variables as well. Now that is how this variable got generated 7870, and now the body, like whatever it is created, you can see that qavbox11@gmail.com, right? But when I call this particular put call, it will be changed to differently. You can see that it changed it to yahoo.com. Based on my input, this entire thing got changed. Now when you do the get all users, right, you will see a different section actually here, and you can see the latest whichever I updated, I am getting that as my details actually. And this is what I was talking actually when I have given my this authorization, right? That's where it is coming. And even I can give this authorization here, sorry, not here, into this authorization. Even I can give into this authentication section as well. Okay, so now let's understand what are the different tests I can do that. For sure it got failed, all these things, don't worry about that, because for this update call I need to make sure that 200 status, let's make sure that it is updating, right? So let's expect some more time. So 350 milliseconds I'm expecting. Now here what it is, so I can have something, I can even say that this particular response should not be null actually, or this user ID should not be null. The same concept I can apply here. Okay, see if there is any issue, let's say that for an instance, let's say that the value is wrong one. I'll just do one thing, one example. I will say something. Okay, now this is not existing, this user ID is not existing, but I'm trying to update it. You can see that the message is coming, resource not found. Now there is no ID here, and my test case also got failed. You can see that. Create user test. Let's see what is this. Create user test, and I'm making sure that there is no ID, shouldn't be null. So if you see a peculiar behavior, right, the ID is not created here, but though my test case got passed here, create user test. The reason is that we have expected this particular user ID is not null. Actually, the user ID is coming as undefined when it is not able to read from here. So what we can do instead of making this is not null, we can make sure that it should match something actually. So we can make sure that like pm.expect user ID to contains, here we can say that, or to includes, or even include, I will say that undefined. Here I can say undefined. Okay, I'll show you actually how I got it actually. So if you put this console statement right here, you can put this actually here, like for an instance I'll put a console dot error, I'll put, and I will make sure that this user ID, and if you run that, you see that user ID is coming as undefined. Now that's how I got it. Now this undefined, I will be making sure that it should be into this test actually here. Okay, now let me do one thing. Now let me do a send call here, and let's do this. Assertion error. Okay, undefined age string is invalid. Okay, user ID to includes, or I can say that to equal, and here this should be normal undefined actually. And now if I send this, and you can see that this particular stuff is working fine. But at this moment actually what is happening, when the ID should be created actually, so I should say that like whenever I'm running this, I shouldn't be getting this particular message here. So I should say that to not equal actually, I will say. So it means that to dot, I will say that not dot equal here, I will say, and for sure it will be failing at this moment. But then when it is a correct one, for an instance, let's say that I'm giving the correct token actually, not token but the user ID, and I'm sending this, and I should get this properly. Now this is how you need to debug, and you need to add these details. Even this one, this particular statement is valid for this one also. Again the same thing, right? Think about, I'm sending this. Okay, so here anyway it is creating, again I will be creating, and you can see that this particular ID got failed. I mean no ID is coming. But if you see that my test case, the test case got passed because the ID is undefined. So instead of not null, I can copy paste this one actually here. So I will say that pm.expect here, and I should say that it should be undefined. So like this, different debuggings you need to do and make sure that your API testing should be proper enough. Okay, so now we have updated this. Now the update details are coming. See, it is all dynamic, it is happening. First it is getting all the users, then it is adding, and it is reading this particular ID, what it is generated, by making sure that it is even assigning to a user ID variable. Then the same user ID I'm taking here and updating some value based on this particular new value actually here. Fine. Now the next thing, that let's say that I want to delete it, because that is my end goal, right? That I can really delete something there. So for this actually I have to use the delete endpoint. Now to delete that, what is the endpoint? You can see that public v2 users, and the same thing, some user ID I need to give. So I will just duplicate it, but in this case I will make sure that it is a delete call, and here I will update something here. I'll say that delete user. Okay, because I don't want to keep that after my testing. And here the same thing, same user ID only, which I created, which I updated, the same user ID I'm deleting it. Okay, now for this let me go back to, and here you don't need any kind of body actually. Okay, it has to be only the authorization, the parameter, the user ID which you want to delete it, that should be as a path parameter. Now let's come back to the test actually here. Now what kind of different test I will be assigning here? One is that like I need to make sure that let's see first what exactly it does when I do a delete actually here. Okay, so it is saying resource not found. Okay, whenever I'm deleting, let me see that if this is really a valid one. Okay, you can see the user ID did not create it, that's why it is coming. So let me go back to this, and okay, email address is taken, so I need to make an individual. I need to make sure that the user ID, you can see 7876, and then that is coming here. Now if I see, if this particular ID is not existing, I'm getting this. It means that I need to make sure this user ID. Now, okay, let me put a success scenario first. Okay, you can see that it says that 204 no content here. Okay, no content in this sense, there is no body it is coming. I'll make sure that this 200 should be to edge 204, and here what I'm going to do, that I need to make sure that my response should be empty actually. and I don't need all these things. I can remove it, and I need to make sure this is also not required. Okay, so here I will say that pm dot response to, here I will say not be with body actually. So when I do this, now it should treat as that there shouldn't be any body here. Now if I'm running this by making this send, here if you go, you can see that the create user test got passed here because there is no body. But let me just rerun this. Now this particular, when I'm see, this user ID is no longer existing at this moment. Let me show you that. If I send it, you can see that the message is coming as a that there is nothing to kind of delete it here, and my test case got failed. You can see that. If it would have been an existing or an active user ID, then this particular test result would have been passed. Like that, you can check for a empty response check actually whenever you are doing. And for sure, this 204 you are expecting, but it is coming as 404. So like this. Now these are different 4 different types of your calls actually. So the read, then create, update, delete. Now let me make sure that this entire collection is nothing but these calls, right, should run in a sequence. Now let me let me close all the tabs here. Okay, and now there is just one thing I need to make sure, that these names should be unique actually here. So I'll make sure that let me just make sure that everything is deleted. So here you can see a lot of QAB box, these entries are there. Okay, now let me make sure that these 4 entities should be deleted one by one. Okay, fine then. So I have deleted everything. Now if you read this, you won't be having any kind of QAB box entries here. Okay, so we should be good now with this. Okay, so now let me run this collection, go to this particular collection, right, and come back to this 3 dots, run collection, and you will see all these API endpoints which I'm calling run manually. We'll see about the schedule run and automate via CLI. Later we will see that. Now at this moment, let me run it with 1 iteration. There shouldn't be any delay, and run this particular collection. And you can see that these all things are running. And let me show you the past, and here you can see all the tests actually got executed. There is no issue with that. And you can see here it is passed. Here it is not passing. Actually, these are something which is not passing because of what do you call this time actually that we have given. But you can see this particular test case got passed. It means that it is executing fine. Let me see why this got failed actually. What is the problem here? Let me go to this failed scenario. This is actually this get call here. What is the problem here? Test greater than 1. Okay, PM response JSON, and then that user count. Oh, you know what, why it got failed? Let me go back to that and I will tell you that. So when I'm saying this, right, these are all objects. Object in this sense, what is happening here, when I'm saying pm.response.json, it is actually this entire block actually. Now this entire block cannot be greater than 1, but the count should be greater than 1, or the length. So here I need to make sure that the dot length, okay, this should be greater than 1. So this count should be greater than 1. Actually here, to just make sure that it should be users dot length, I can do like this for good naming convention. And then let me again rerun this collection. So I'll go to this, run collection, run manually, and run this entire. And you can see that now this got executed. This is passed, this is passed, this is passed, and this is passed. Don't worry about these 2 statements because of the latency. It failed here. So that is how you can run your API collection actually here. Now in our upcoming sessions, we will see how you can really run these collections by using the command prompt. Let's say Postman is not there. You have given this collection to somebody without even importing to your collection, you can even run this. Even you can use the GitHub Actions to run, or in your Docker containers. There are a lot of CI/CD integration is there. So those things we will see. But this particular session is all about how you can create a CRUD operation, and something to know about how to write different tests and how to debug and update it as and when it is required. And also it gives you a kind of notion how to test these API endpoints based on their functionalities. So hope this session is useful. Stay tuned and do subscribe to this YouTube channel. We will be seeing some more interesting topics. Thank you for watching.